Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to Holistically Healing Me. I am Ardelia Jones, and I am so excited today because we have a special lady here on tonight, and we're just so excited about this. We're always bringing the topics, okay? We're always bringing the topics, and one is the really precious to everyone is about our children, the children of the future. And there's no better person than to talk about this subject, not another person that I found so far that is really about education and about our community. None other than Professor April Jackson. I'm going to let her talk about all this good stuff with Pass Network. I want you guys to get all excited for her. I wish I had one of the principal that would I wish I had that for you. I'm so excited. So go ahead and talk to the people, introduce yourself, and just let them know all about you.
Hi, I am April Jackson, as stated, of Pass Network and Pass Network Foundation, and we provide a culturally relevant and academically challenging learning experience in a small group learning environment. I am in Atlanta, and I lead Black Homeschools ATL.
Oh goodness. Okay, so it had yeah, so I know that you are in Atlanta. And there was something else that I thought that was so great about you was that you actually started your own teeny school, right? You started your own
Yes.
tiny school.
Yes, yes. So about it's the second year of this program, and I came out of public education after being in there for more than a decade. And we're on the cusp of the Black Lives Matter movement and so forth. And I thought I wanted to make sure that we were ensuring that our children received a culturally relevant education. And I've always served in predominantly Black schools, predominantly Black teachers, staff, leadership, as well as students. And my
Mhm.
last straw was I asked my principal, could I add more African American authors to our English curriculum because it was lacking. And my Black
Yes.
principal told me no. And I said, you know what? This is it. Because if we're not going to do it for ourselves, then who else is going to do it? So I stepped
Okay.
out and stepped out on my own. And I started with a few children, and it's just grown. And it was just me and a couple of other leaders, teachers that came out and were doing the work also. And we came together and started Black Homeschools ATL. So we're all over the Atlanta area.
Wow, that is so amazing. So you're telling me that educators that were in traditional setting type learning environments, a group of you Black women, educators, let's get this right,
Mhm.
came together and just started your own network.
So what it was we had all it was we all were doing it in isolation, right? I set out and I
Oh,
did it and I was already doing it. And then someone that was already doing it before me, she said, well, hey, you're just getting started. I'm going to send the kids your way. So she sent a bunch of kids to me because I was in a different area of town. And as I started to do the work, I started to meet more people. And I thought I had this brilliant idea that was all my idea, but it wasn't. There were a group of us that were already doing it. We didn't know each other. So then I said, okay, look, we're all doing it and we all are have the
yes.
same goal. So let's come together. And thankfully, like Black women do, anytime you say, sis, come on, what we do,
Mhm.
sis came on. So it went from just me doing it in isolation. And now there are over 10 of us in the Atlanta area that are
Oh
doing
my.
it collaboratively.
Well, I can't wait till you branch all the way out. And that I'm serious because that was always one of with my oldest son. At that time, I was married and I had, and which is 22. So we're talking about 22 years ago. So at that time, I was married and I was able to homeschool him.
Right. Okay.
But with my second son, that's 7, life is different. I'm divorced. I have to
Right.
go out. I got to do this. I got to do that. I have a whole lot of things, but I understand the importance of homeschooling. I
Right.
understand the homeschooling atmosphere with the embodiment of knowledge that a child can get that they're missing when it comes to traditional school because everything is regimented on a schedule.
Right. Right.
Hmm. So, and then there's limitations on what should be accessible to them versus or what they get, which is usually things that's going to have them accustomed to being a worker for someone.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I
Right.
mean, hey, I'm just.
Right, because even the school schedule is because of work. It was
Mhm.
not. It was 8 hours a day is too long to be in school. 5 days a week is too much to be in school. For the typical child,
Yes.
they don't need that. But we do it. Why? Because parents are forced to work 40 hours a week, 9 to 5,
Hmm.
ideally. And so school was established to work on the same schedule so that somebody was babysitting children while parents had to go to work.
That's
So
true.
it was never designed what was it in the best interest of children.
Hmm.
It was in the best interest of keeping the economy going for those to continue to get rich. So when we stepped out and started doing it on our own, we started to see all of these unique ways that we could do it. For instance, now I really serve the parent that works in the evening times because I do my program in the evening now. And so the children, they're at home during
Oh,
the day with the parent,
wow.
and they get to come to me in the evening, and they only have to come 3 days a week. It doesn't take that. Honestly, right now, I work with the children 6 hours per week. We do 2 hours each night, Tuesday through Thursday, 6 hours. But those children are growing by at least a grade level or more every year, even without going all day because they don't need that. And I'm able to, within 2 hours, we
And it's
get the time.
overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. And so much of the school day is
It's
wasted
overwhelming.
and it's wasteful. It's a wasteful use of time. They spend so much time in transition from this class to that class, settling it in. I
Yeah.
have to go in this class, I have to settle this class down and do all of that. By the time it's all said and done, they've been there for 7 to 8 hours, but they've only received maybe 3 or 4 hours of actual instructional time. So why do we
Whoa.
need 8 hours?
Then that itself make me think that there's something more to the excessive amount of time. The time is banked on something with dollars that is beneficial in some form or fashion. Now, because I don't have the statistics and I don't know the numbers of on that, I can't speak too heavily about it. That's only just my own speculation. But there has to be something tied up to the fact of in this, it has to be a certain amount of hours in order for you to get a certain amount of money a day, uh, with some kind of way. Anyway,
Oh, yeah, so
oh, moving right
it is.
along.
Schools have to be in session. For instance, in Georgia,
It
they
is.
have to they have to be in session
Uh
for
huh.
180 days, and you have to have at least 4 hours or more to count that as a day. So if you are not in session for the allotted amount of days and that child doesn't receive credit, you don't receive the funding that you need. Also, when we talk about the money factor of it, we're talking about, if we think about what happened during the pandemic, when we didn't have childcare, mothers and fathers couldn't go to work. And they want you in that
Yes.
job for 8 hours a day. Now, we
True.
figured out that you don't need 8 hours to do the job that you do. I have plenty of friends that work from home, and the work only really takes them about 4 hours to do. But their leadership will have them on there logged in, verifying that you're logged in for 8 hours of the day. But they really finish the work and achieve the goal within four
Mhm.
hours. But they don't want to pay you what you're worth. So they make you, because if I got the job done in 4 hours, I'm still
In the
worth the
time.
same
Yes.
$80,000, right? But then I'm going
Yes.
to, it's
That's exactly
it's
right.
all a manipulation. It all ties back to the money.
Mhm. Yes, that's what I figured too. But you made a great about during the pandemic, versus when people had to return back to work 8 hours a day, like you're saying. There was definitely some differences here that were. I know with me, I I did not want to go back into a building at all. I rather just be, do whatever it is that I need to do, and not go back into a building. But because I had to eventually go back, and there's those parents that are definitely seeing this type of system. I have you decided, or is there a way that you would be able to accommodate anyone, or a program that you have to where it's all on Zoom, or and the child could still be accredited through you even if they're in different states?
Yes. Well, that's not the model that I use, but I know a lot of people that do. Like we have tutor tots and they're online. And she typically works with the younger children until about 7. Her program is amazing, Allison. There's a young lady that I met that's a soror, and I cannot call her name right now, but she has a program all online, and it's only like $22 a month to do her program. It's all
Wow.
online for children. A lot of parents just don't know that we're out here, and they don't want you to know
That's
that we're
it.
out here and we're doing this work. Because if you know that we're not out here, those that are profiting off of schools, off of charter schools, off of us not having the knowledge to excel in, in entrepreneurship and so forth, those that are profiting off of it don't want you to know. For instance, the
Mm-hmm.
funding for us,
That's true.
we got a lot of funding that came into us this year. But when we dug into who was giving it to us, which I'm not going to call them out right now, but we found out that the foundation that was donating them, that was giving us all of these grants, was using the information that they were gathering from us in order to defund public education so that they could take it to fund private education. But it's not to fund private education for those that look like me and you. It's to fund private education for
Wow.
them, because they're going to keep it to where they're going
Wow.
to say they're going to use the data that they're gathering from us to make sure that they funnel, say, $6,000 a year into private education. Well, a private education, say in Atlanta, costs on average about $12,000 a year. So for the average low income person, that other 6,000 is still hard to come up with. But what they do is ensure
Yes.
that the middle class or upper middle class can still have access to the private school and take their children out of public school.
So very true. You're making a very, very. I was gonna talk about that a little bit. How the differences between traditional school versus homeschooling. Then the fact of there's so much trickery that's involved with, and it has nothing to do with higher education. That's one of the things that gets me. It's like, no, they want to keep the children in almost like a roboticness, to where they just could be a better cook at McDonald's. They could be a better
Yeah.
this or that, versus where they're actually about higher learning. This is what I get from traditional versus homeschooling. Homeschooling, to me, it allows the child to prepare for higher learning, meaning that it prepares them for the prestigious colleges, whichever way that they're wanting to go. And then it also allows that person that is noticing the gifts of that child to be able to bring that out of them even more so. If you notice one that just really loves science, so you are able to kind of chime in on that for that particular kid. But at the meanwhile, they're still getting the reading that they need, and
Right.
even broadening their minds. And I know that with my youngest son, he has been diagnosed with autism. It's not that he's not capable at all. He's very bright, actually, but it has to be something of his interest.
Right.
And
Right.
it's just different. It's so different when you have a teacher that can identify, then she's have the ability to bring out all of the best. And then you can have one teacher, especially in traditional schools, that it takes me to, I have to repeat too many times. I'm repeating to him a lot of times. I have 25 other kids, so I
Right.
can't keep repeating to this kid, even though y'all saying that he don't need to be in the other people class, and he could be in the general, because they even call it the general. I thought that was a trip when I heard that. General population, child, you sound like the prison. What you talking
You
about?
you know
General
what they call it?
population.
The pipeline to prison.
What?
Yes, our schools are considered pipelines to prison. You know that because they look at our kids' data at fourth grade, and that's how they determine how they're going to build prisons. If that child is behind in fourth grade, then they did because the typical child that complete the typical juvenile offender, if you look at his school data, you will find that that child is functionally illiterate, and they know that there's a direct correlation between literacy and prison rates. And so they use that fourth grade data to determine how many prisons we need to build in the next 10, 20 years based on that child's data. And they
Wow.
purposely keep information from us. For instance, in many states, let me take let's I'm in Georgia, so I'm going to speak from a Georgia perspective. A lot of families don't even know, one, in Georgia, you can start homeschooling your child at any moment. You can pull your child out of public school and declare
Yes.
them as a homeschool child. In the state
Hmm.
of Georgia, you don't have to have an umbrella school or anything of that nature. And for those that don't know what that means, it's another school that you have to say that your child is enrolled here. Now you can be teaching them at home, but they have to have this umbrella school over them. But in Georgia, you don't even have to have that. As a matter of fact, in the state of Georgia, if a child is you can graduate your child from high school from a homeschool anytime you get ready to. If that child is of age, you can graduate that child from homeschool whenever you get ready, and the diploma you give them from your home can be accepted at any major university and to go to the military. So if you have a child that is over high school, they are just not there anymore. You can bring them out and say, you know what, I'm going to homeschool them, give them the concepts they need and so forth, and get them on into college if you wanted to. Or
Wow.
but you don't most people don't even know the rules for their state, and they also perceive homeschooling to me, I've got to do all the work myself. But like I said, there are so many learning communities in your area that you don't even know about, that because you haven't been typing in the right thing in Google. Go to homeschool. Go to
Very
homeschool
true. Very
California,
true.
homeschool Idaho. Find out what the regulations are for your state. And then join these Facebook groups that are homeschool groups for your state. Get inside of it and just start watching. And they're going to tell you everything you need to. Oh, we did this. Oh, we learned about this. You'll learn about the learning communities in your area that you can send your child to. And you can learn about the regulations for your state, how they really work. How they really
See, you just done this again. That was like the next question. It was about what do we need to know regarding homeschooling in, and you just did it again. You keep answering. It's amazing. So it's just amazing. Um, and so basically, what you're trying to tell us is that look, there's other ways to get your child educated and put them in the right way. If you're wanting them to have higher learning, if they are just over high school, instead of them trying to bash them down and keep them locked into a place that they don't really want to be, get them prepared. Find out what your state says about homeschooling. That's
right.
the primary thing that you're saying. Find out what your guidelines are for homeschooling in your state, and then go accordingly to that on what it is, the steps that you need to take in order to be able to do the best thing for your child.
Exactly.
Versus, mhm. Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
And then
Because
you,
like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Tell, because I'm sure you got some more good stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, because so one of the things that I offer is a high school rapid graduation program where they
Oh
go
wow.
through the entire high school in 24 weeks, 6 months. And what we do every month and a half, they go through another grade level. And what I do is identify what are your child's goals. So it can be longer depending on your child's goal. Some children are not college bound. And if they're not college bound, why do they need to be on a college and career readiness pathway? They need to be on a career pathway. So, what they could be doing during the day is when the typical
Yeah.
high school child can't work, they could already be working. They could come to me in the evening, go through the program with me 4 hours a week for a high school child, 4 hours a week, and we'll get them through the graduation program. We'll have the documentation that we need, and we'll graduate them on. Or you could keep them in a homeschool program, enroll them and put them in dual enrollment in your homeschool program and let them start junior college during the day. And now the credit they're getting from college they can use as their high school credit, which is what they do in high schools anyway in dual enrollment. And we can have them,
Yes.
we'll graduate them when they get through their first 2 years of college from high school, and they'll walk out of high school with their associate's degree and they can go on to college. We can get creative about this. We have to
Wow.
start thinking in the spiral. And I say, stop thinking outside of the box. Our box is limited. But when we think in the spiral, we keep going up. And they're not
Yes.
going to
Very
tell
true.
you that they can do this. Oh, no. They don't want you to do this because they know if you homeschool your child, you're going to empower your child and they want to keep your child stifled.
My. This is really good. This is good because you just answered, how do you see the future for the children that are homeschooled? Um, and you just said it. It's like it just keeps going higher. It's unlimited. When they have been homeschooled or in a setting such as yours, where it's benefiting them, where they could do the same type of thing that they would be doing in a traditional school if they're doing the dual program, which is
Right.
true. I know about that because my oldest had done the dual program. So
Mhm.
it is just so amazing, though, that you can actually have a child that is high school age, and you can go ahead and put them into a junior college, and then they can go the 2 years so that they'll be ready for to finish high school right off in the 2 years, as well as they'll have their associate's degree, which is the same exact thing, and they still not placed into that traditional system. I think that's
Right.
brilliant.
And a lot of people also don't realize that a lot of states pay for that dual enrollment, even for homeschool students. So
Wow.
in the state of Georgia, for instance, you can, if you're dual enroll in high school and college, in junior college, the state pays for up to 2 years. And then after that you have to, you have to move on to a college, and then there's a hope scholarship out there for you and so forth. So there are the funding it can be there for you and so forth. But parents just have to be willing to, you can pay, and we charge as little as $450 a month for you to come to my program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, private school is going to cost you over $1,000 or more a month, and
Oh
we are
yes, for sure.
charging less than half of that for you to do our programs. And all of us charge about the same amount for what we do. We just have to stop. But it's hard to get, and I hate to say it, but it's true. We have been told so long that this is the only way to do is you got to go to high school. It has to be accredited and all of this. What is accreditation really?
Huh,
Whoever asked you, was your child's school accredited? Nobody asked that question. No one.
no, no one.
Colleges now, first of all, they're moving away from ACT and SAT. But before you enter college now, you're going to have to take a placement test for most children anyway.
Yes,
You're going
yes.
to have to show ACT and SAT scores. That's what colleges are based on. They don't care. They've been accepting students from failing schools for years. They, I'm serious. They, They accept you. They Nobody cares if your high school was accredited or not. Parents ask me all the time, "Is your program accredited?" Who Nobody asks you that question when you go somewhere. At least I haven't experienced it.
No, I've never heard of it either. I've
But the
never heard of
parents
it.
ask that because they've been taught the word accreditation as if it means something.
Yeah,
And
that
it
like that's a validation. Even when it comes to getting a job, if they say that the requirement is a bachelor's or the amount of time that you have done a job or a specific job in that particular field, they can sometimes or an associate. I don't recall anyone says, "Is it from an accredited school?" It's like, "Where is your diploma?" I just never.
never
I've
once has anyone asked you,
I've never once remember. I don't recall ever. That's funny that you should
ever
say
hearing
that
it.
because that's
That's
funny
the
that you
first
should say
question
that.
parents ask me. Is your program accredited? Ma'am, it really doesn't matter, you know. But again, I'm in the Southeast and rules are a little different in the South. So I always encourage people to understand the rules for their state as far as homeschooling, understand their child's pathway, and look at what
Mhm.
that pathway is going to require, because certain pathways, for instance, if I'm going to go to Georgia Tech, then that may be different if I'm going to Harvard. So is your child on a state school track, or are they going to Howard, Harvard, Yale, Princeton? Then you may want to keep your child in a traditional high school so that that may be able to better prepare them, maybe able to better prepare them. But if your child is about to go to become a welder, or your child is about to be a beautician, or your child is even about to be a teacher, teacher education programs, it just things like it just doesn't matter.
There are some children that have been homeschooled and they have landed some really great positions because the parent was able to take out the proper time to gear them on what their talents and gifts were. So I like the thing. I like the concept that you gave earlier about the spiral. It just keep going and going higher. There are no limitations with that. I believe there's no limitations. I don't think so. Well, first off, I want y'all to know that this woman makes like the most awesome post about education. It is so creative the way that you just because that's what happened with me is that I typed in homeschooling and I had been following you for a while before I actually reached out to you. Uh, and when I initially done that, I think that was last year that I was wanting to know more about homeschooling, and then I saw you, and I had actually was like, I want to get to know her a little bit more. Let me study her. Your approach is truly remarkable to me because not everyone have the ability to actually speak what is truth. A
Mhm.
lot of people can see it, know it, but yet and still, as far as me actually saying something is one thing, and they're not going to do it. And
Right.
then do something. That's the other one. And you're both. It's not that you don't have the
Thank
ability.
you.
You have the ability to speak forth, and then you have the ability to do. So i
Right.
i
Thank
was just
you.
admired by it. I was absolutely blown away. I'm like, oh wow, now this is real. This is the real thing here. So and I had to weed through a lot of different homeschoolers. It's a lot out there, but
Right.
you have to make sure that you connect with the right type of person that is going to be no nonsense with your child, because the main purpose for the individual is education. No
Right.
matter what this and that, you're passionate about education, and not everybody is passionate about education that is a teacher.
No,
They can
most
say,
are. Most are. And when you see them, and when you see that they've lost, now grant you, they started opening the doors up for people to come out of all fields and go into education. And so you do have some people that were
true.
not passionate about it coming in. but grew passionate about it. But I tell you what, they kill it out of you. They rip that passion out of you when you get inside of that building and you see what they're really doing to our children. Um, I see where our children are progressively going further and further behind. And even in school with Black teachers and Black leaders, they are not addressing the issues because they're so bound by test scores. Because the threat is
Yeah.
if your test scores don't get up, we're going to take over your school. You're going to lose your charter, things like that. And so while we
Mhm.
know we needed to stop after the pandemic and say, hold up, we're going to go back to addition, subtraction, multiplication, division.
I agree with you 100%.
We didn't do it. We didn't do it because somebody wanted our test data to show growth after a pandemic. And that's how they have been doing us consistently. And we cannot show the growth. Our children are behind. We are in schools where teachers are inconsistent. Our teachers are leaving mid year, in the middle of the day sometimes, and then our children are stuck with substitutes. The best teachers are in our buildings, but because we're getting the best of the best, they'll pull and they'll take them to the other schools. We're going to take you over
Wow.
here. We're going to put you in leadership. They want every teacher to be a leader. Leave some of them in the building to do the work. So that's one of the problems that I see happening with good teachers is instead of giving them more money for what they're doing, they only get more money if they go back to school, get more education, if they take on a leadership role. So teachers are leaving the classroom not because they don't love it anymore, but because I can get $100,000 a year as a principal, but you'll keep me at $50,000 a year as a teacher. And it happens every day. I got a $10,000 raise to come and be an academic coach, but I got nothing to stay as a teacher. They left me at the same pay grade for 3 years as a teacher, and all I had to do was leave the classroom, and they gave me $10,000. So
Wow.
where are your good teachers going to go? They're going to keep going into leadership, or they're going to leave the field of education. So every teacher is not passionate about it, but there are a lot of things that happen, like forcing us to pass children. We have to
Mhm.
have a 80% passage rate of our children. And if we don't in traditional schools, then we are seen as bad teachers. But the children are coming to us 3 grade levels behind. So tell
True.
me how this child passes ninth grade when the data says that they're reading on a 3rd grade level, but you want me to pass them.
And then you're forced to.
And I'm forced to, and you will go and change my grades if I don't. I have come back off of summer break in a traditional school and seen students that I know failed my class in the next level up. They've gone from ninth grade to 10th grade ELA, and I know they failed my class, but somebody went in and doctored my grade book, and it happens. But the leadership has to do it because if I don't do it and I refuse, and the passage rate is too high, that principal's job is then in jeopardy. And the
Yes.
school board forces them to do it because their funding is in jeopardy.
And that's right. You said it. That's it. That is it. Because oh my goodness. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the funding. And that's it.
Right,
The main focus is numbers equals funding.
right.
And that's all.
And so
It's such a numbers game.
we know if a student doesn't pass ninth grade, that student is astronomically more likely to not graduate high school. So we want to pass all ninth graders. And honestly, and so here's the other conundrum for teachers though. If they reach me at ninth grade and they're reading at a 3rd grade level, who am I to now stifle them when they're 4 years away from graduating? I just then at ninth grade say, let me grow you. And I'm only going to be able to grow you to maybe 4th or 5th grade level. But let me just grow you and move you on because there's no need of trying to stop you now. I mean, what do I really do? Is it who is it? It's unfair to the child that they've even experienced this. But am I being more unfair to fail them now? Or what do I do? And if I really don't know, I don't have the resources to help you get on grade level. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources to get you on grade level. What what is the best thing for me to do as the teacher? Do I pass you and grow you a little and help the next teacher grows you a little more? Or do I stop you right here? But you're at a third grade level. You'll never get to ninth grade level. It's not like if I hold you back, you'll be at ninth grade level next year. You're
No,
never going to get to ninth grade level within a reasonable amount of time to justify me failing you. So, what do I do?
wow. Those are the true scenarios that's happening every single day in
Every
our
single day.
traditional school system. That is the nightmare that is happening to our children. And then they have the tendency to wonder what's happening. And me being able to speak from a single parent's perspective, you're having to be mother, father, provider, financial everything. You're having to be so, you have to wear so many different hats and make sure everything is handled and taken care of. By
Right.
the time you do get to your child and ask, did you have any homework? Is everything okay? Let me see what you was doing. They're either going to tell you, which is so believable, I didn't have any homework because I done it already.
I did it
Okay,
at
so
school.
yeah, I did it at school. So it's all right. So let me see something. Can you pull it up on the computer to let me see your grades right now? Or anything like that. Oh, I got to get that password from so and so so because most of the kids are on computers.
Right.
They're on computers. So it's like, what do you do?
Well, I think some steps that for me, for parents need to take is, like you said, the password issue. The
Yeah.
password, if your child is in the same school district, the password typically stays the same. So get the password. When your child is entered into a school, how do I access my child's grades from a computer? Get the password. The counselor should be able to give it to you, your child's homeroom teacher. Um, Make sure you get the password so you can access your child's grade.
Mm-hmm.
Then stay in contact with the teacher. Say, hey, how should I look for your grades? Some teachers, like for instance, we have a system that we input grades, but children are working out of Google Classroom. So should
Mm-hmm.
I look as a parent? Should I be looking in Google Classroom, or should I be looking in the system where you all actually input the grades that are going to go on the report card? Where do I need to look? And every teacher might be different. So you ask every teacher, you get your child's password, you get in contact with the teacher, you say, what's the best way to monitor my child's grades for your class?
Mm-hmm.
Know that. Jot that down in the book. Okay, Miss Jackson likes me to check Google Classroom. Miss Johnson wants me to check. Um, we have Infinite Campus or Power School or whatever. She wants me to check Power School. Okay, Miss Johnson, how often should I be checking? How often do you put in grades? Some teachers do it bi-weekly. Okay, Miss Jones puts hers in every 2 weeks. So now I need to add that to my calendar. That's how I
Yes.
monitor my child's grades. Another thing is, and you have to be that detailed, put it on a chart for yourself. Remind yourself. Then also, your child's end of the year test data. Every school requires standardized tests. That test data usually comes out
Yes.
sometime that summer or so forth. Get your child's data. Learn how to read that data. Know your child's Lexile. Lexile is your child's reading level. My child is in the 7th grade, but their Lexile says that they're reading on a 3rd grade reading level. Okay. Now I know this about my child because some parents perceive a child's social ability as their
Mm-hmm.
academic ability. Your child got all the friends. Your child is popular. They can talk, they can speak well, but if you gave them something to read and comprehend, they couldn't. And parents don't realize it. And we stop listening to our children
Wow.
read at about kindergarten, 1st grade. When was the last time you gave your child something and said, read this to me? Read it to me. If your child's in the 6th grade, Ninth
That's
grade,
a very
read
good.
this to me.
Yeah, if they're in a, yeah, yeah, that's
Read
true.
it to
If
me.
they're in a higher grade, but once they're second grade, first grade, third grade, you're right there. You're listening to them. But when you get to a higher grade, especially sixth grade, seventh grade, you're not asking them to come and sit down and read that to you, unless not in a traditional schooling is
Not in a
not
traditional
so much.
school. So
Not
get
so
your
much.
child to read to you so you can just see for yourself. Oh my. And then once they get done reading, as they're reading, you jot down a couple of questions and then just
Uh-huh.
ask them, just, okay, who was the main character? Okay, who was the person that jumped over the fence? Whatever you can remember from the text, see if they can recall that to you. That's a quick way that you can assess, oh, my child cannot read on grade level or they can't comprehend on grade level. And once you realize that, your steps then are to then go to that child's teacher and say, what resources do you have at the school level? Because that's usually going to be free. But if the school is really not offering any support,
Yeah.
you got to pay some money. You got to pay some money. But I would say check with your library first, because I know I used to offer free math tutoring at the library and no one would come out most of the time. But I don't know if they knew that I was even there.
Wow. Again, just one of those things that people didn't know. Right.
They
People
didn't
didn't
know.
know.
They didn't know. So check with your library and say, is there any library in the area that offers, they have some free reading comprehension support, reading remediation support, and so
Oh, I
forth?
love
Do they have
that.
any math support? Ask if there's something free. If money is an issue, ask. You'll be amazed. Your child's teacher will say, I've had a lot of teachers say, I'll sit with your child for 3 days a week and work with them after school for free. Many teachers will. They just want a parent to ask. So ask your child's teacher. And if the
Wow.
teacher says no, don't get upset because they don't owe you that. Now, they don't owe you that, but many will do it.
Yes.
You know,
Mhm. I know
ask
that
for the
with my
support.
youngest, we did that. We did that. There was a particular teacher last year, for first grade, that she would stay with students if you wanted to have the tutoring, and she did it like a couple of times a week.
Right. But make sure that what you're getting is quality. Okay. You want them to assess your child. This is not homework help, parent. I tell, don't go to tutoring for homework help. That's not what you use tutoring for. Tutoring should close those learning gaps. So they should be
Right.
assessing your child when they start tutoring. They should be able to tell you this is where your child is performing, and they should be able to show you incremental growth in your child. If they're just going to sit your child on a computer and that's what they consider tutoring, that's not for you. Because I hope I'm blessing somebody right now. I'm trying to
Yeah,
drop some gems.
honey. You are blessing, 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 blessing. You know what? You know when it be hot and you know it's getting hot to you, it's like, okay, that's probably what that girl was doing. uh, yeah, I'm like, wow. You want to make sure that if you pick a tutor, that that person is not just putting that child on the computer, that they are actually have assessed your kid to try to pull the gaps together.
Right.
Wow.
Right. They should know. When I work with my children, my homeschool kids, I assess them. The first thing I do is I do an assessment. If that child doesn't know how to count money, that's what we work on. I don't care what grade level you're supposed to be on. If you can't count money, then we need to work on you being able to count money. Because
Right.
I don't care what you do, you need to be able to count money. You need to be able to tell time. You need to be able to talk about elapsed time. So if I got to the airport
Mhm.
at this time and my flight doesn't leave until this, how much of a delay is it between these two flights? Am I going to have enough time when I get to Atlanta airport, as big as it is, to get to my next flight? But if I
Okay.
can't calculate elapsed time, then I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then my catch a flight is 20 minutes, and in Atlanta airport you need at least an hour
At
of
least
time.
just to get to the gate.
Right.
Oh
And I'm
Lord.
sure it's like
Yes.
that in California, our larger airports. So
Yeah.
that's where that comes in at. When they're measuring, if they can't do measurements, how are they going to be these chefs that they want to be, but they can't count measurements?
Mm.
So that your child's tutor needs to be closing gaps. Do not use a tutor for homework help. That's not what a tutor is for. I
Wow,
don't
wow.
I don't feel. Now if you're a parent that just doesn't have the time and you need a tutor and you need someone for that, get a nanny or whatever, somebody to come in and just sit and do homework with them. That's not what a tutor is for. If you use somebody like that, then your child needs to be on grade level. They don't have any gaps, and you just need someone to sit with your child because you don't feel like it in the evening time. But if your child has gaps, you need a real tutor. But if you can't, if you go to the teacher, excuse me, and the teacher can't help, you go to your library, you see if they offer something. And
Hmm.
if the library doesn't offer anything, then at that point, hey, inside your church, is there a retired teacher in there?
Now that's a great idea. You just giving out all kinds of gems. You speaking our proverbs that we had on here, that Proverbs 18 and 15. The heart of the prudent get it knowledge. Like if
Right,
you really want to know some knowledge, you really want to get some knowledge, this is a lot of knowledge right here. So I would think that a wise person would be like, okay, I'm going to be able to do this a lot better with my kids, especially if, because I felt like that. I felt guilty. My oldest son compared to my youngest son, totally different on the amount of time that I have spent. Totally
right,
different. I mean, and when you get things like this is something that we could actually do on a Saturday. I can easily go to the library and say, hey, let me find out if this particular library or which library in my area is going to have a free reading,
right,
all kinds of stuff that they may do or offer, or a tutor that's just sitting there just to and then that's something adventurous for the kid. So I like that, I really
right.
do. You're giving
And
some good nuggets.
and these are, and a lot of times that tutor that offers that free time will also do it outside of that time. Even if you can't meet the times that she or he offers, then say,
Hmm.
hey, I can't come at that hour, but do you offer tutoring at another time? And then also, don't do tutoring for one day a week. That child needs to be in tutoring at least two, but ideally 3 days a week. Any tutoring that's less than that is ineffective. It's
Wow.
ineffective. If you're sending your child somewhere one day a week, now tell me what 1 hour, 1 day a week. That's not enough time to close a gap because a child needs to see something so often. So think about if a child is struggling with division and they're only going to
Yeah.
tutoring for 1 hour a week. By the time you see that child again, they've lost everything that you taught them.
You know, that is amazing that you're saying this. I was just talking to someone about this a minute ago, not too long ago, about it. For some children, it's just a little bit more difficult for them to retain the information,
Very hard.
especially on the schedule that the traditional schools are on. It's really difficult for them. You could be on something today and tomorrow, where it used to be, when I was growing up or whatever, it was where you may stay on that thing for a couple of days. You do a test or a quiz or something that is going to jar your memory, and you have studied it repetitively. You've done it on the blackboard, you've done it with this, you've done a pre-test of it, you've just continuously, you're doing it, and it just becomes so repetitious. But now you're not spending a whole week on you're not.
You're not spending a week on it. You don't have a week to do many things. It's usually a few days on it. And so that's why children are, and then if your child doesn't get it, if your child is part of the if there's 80% of the class got it, we're free to move on.
We're moving on.
We're moving on. But even if 80% haven't gotten it, they'll tell you loop that standard back in, keep moving, because the curriculum pacing guide says you've got to keep going. So I do want to make sure that I hope that parents heard some suggestions on ways to get some free or reduced cost tutoring for their child. Like I said, that retired teacher, sometimes she just glad to have a child around her, and she would just
Wow.
do it from the heart, or she'll do it for a little less than that. She might say, well, mama, what you
Yeah.
got? Just give me that, you know. And then if the retired teacher
Mhm.
is not the option, then that's when you may have to pay some higher money to get it, or maybe you could trade off with a parent.
Mhm.
So maybe there's a parent that's good with reading and you're the parent that's good with math. So y'all can trade off service. Say, hey, I'm going to tutor your child in reading.
Now
You
that's a
tutor
great
my
idea
child
too.
in math, and
Yeah.
then we can work together and we don't have to pay anyone. But if you do have to pay, consider that maybe your child's school environment is not the best place. And so maybe it would be time then to start looking into some alternate options, some different schools in your area, traditional school, or maybe it's time to look at some homeschool communities where they can give your child that one-on-one attention that they need.
Yes. Well, in the next 10 minutes, I wanted you to be able, uh, Miss Jackson, to just answer just a little general questions like how can people reach you, and are you going to have any upcoming workshops or seminars or virtual courses? You've already answered that you don't do the virtual courses, but any upcoming workshops and or seminars that you're going to be doing, and how can they reach you? Because and the one other thing is, how can people donate to your school or your network of schools that you work with the other 10 ladies?
Man, I have so much going on. But follow me on Instagram at Pass Network Org. So it's PASS Network Org. That's where you can follow me. I do offer a virtual workshop for educators, though. It's the Edupreneurs Workshop, and it teaches teachers how to become edupreneurs, educators that are entrepreneurs. I have a free Facebook group where I teach teachers about how to start their own tiny school. I do offer coaching for educators. So for the educator, um, reach out to me on Instagram and I can help you out. If you're in the Atlanta area on February 19th, I am co hosting with all of the Black homeschool communities, Black Homeschools ATL Admissions Fair. And it's where you get to meet a lot of the homeschool operators in the area and try to choose a school for your child. It's on February
Mhm.
19th. It's hosted at my school location. So if you're in the area, come out. And then if you want to donate, let me see. I have my Cash App and I have it's a nonprofit. So you can donate it to my nonprofit, and all of the money goes to support Black homeschooling in the Atlanta area and bring awareness to these services that are out there. So I never remember my Cash App because I think it's so cheesy to give out. But since you asked, um, at Pass Network Donation, $ Pass Network donation is where you can donate to us for the work that we do, and I'm hoping that in the next few years that we can expand. That's going to come with a lot of funding that has to come in, so please donate.
Yeah, it's really, really important that we actually try to stick together with this. And definitely, I mean, from what I'm hearing, Atlanta got it going on to have you guys. And it may very well be that they would that we have the same situation in Texas, but you've certainly helped educate me on, finding out what are the, criterias for Texas, so that I can try to find out the different, avenues that I can take, that's going to be better. You've given us so valuable information. I absolutely thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you so much for sharing this
Thank
wealth
you.
of information, and also the community. It's definitely needed. It's so needed in our community, where we're wanting to educate our children. One of the other things that I know that I want to talk about, you have so many different Black authors that you know about with the books, and I'm like, where did this woman find these books? Where do she find these books? I want those books.
I don't play games. Let me tell you, I have a Facebook group for teachers. It's called African American Lit 365. And is I tell them
Okay.
all about Black authors, Black celebrating the Black experience and how they can incorporate it in their classroom every day. I teach nothing but African American Lit. We don't have to, there's not a standard that I need to teach that I need to go outside of African American Lit for. And so, and everything that we do is from the African American experience. When I say culturally relevant, we learn about the money that moves our community. We learn about the science that we need to know about, the health and wellness. The infant and maternal mortality rate in our community is scary. So many
Yes.
Black, and so we deal with that. We deal with diabetes, we deal with strokes, we deal with heart disease, the number one killer for Black women. We talk about that. And every year, ASALA, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which is started by Carter G. Woodson, a lot of people don't even know that foundation exists. They set what the Black history theme is going to be for each year. Every year, my curriculum is guided by that theme, and I bridge that theme into
Wow.
everything that we do. Asala, I like to call names. Association for the Study of African American Life and History. A lot of people don't know that Black history has a theme every year. I think last year was Black health and wellness, and I don't know why it's escaping my mind this year what the theme is, but there's a theme every year.
Now, see, did you hear yourself when we started talking about African Black American African American lit?
No,
It's just
what
like a totally.
happened?
You said, "Oh,
I love it. I love it.
the
I'm so
passion just
blackity. Like
oozed out of
black.
you." Oh my God, the passion oozed out. It oozed out. Okay, it's like if you did not catch that vibe,
Catch
something
it.
wrong with you.
Get on this wave.
Catch that vibe.
And I'm unapologetic about it. I
I
am
love it.
so unapologetic about it. If you don't want,
You are.
because I'm sick.
Love it.
I don't think we have to trade in Black girl magic for Black boy joy. They can both exist. And I'm tired of talking
Yes.
about the enslavement. And I'm tired of hearing us referred to as slaves. We were enslaved. We were not slaves. And there's a difference. Our state
Mm-hmm.
is not who we were. And I'm sick of it. And so I create a space where Black people and the accomplishments of Black people are celebrated. And
Yes. Yes.
they're celebrated today. Today we learned about Gwendolyn Brooks and Maggie Lena Walker and Claudette Colvin, and I'm here for it.
It is just lovely. It's so lovely. That's one thing about this is that our literature, it is just so unlimited. And most don't know that because we're in a traditional setting. We're taught so very little, so very minute. But there's countless Black authors. There's countless amount of books. There's a countless amount of wealth of knowledge that's African American lit. So it's like you really don't have to go outside of it in order to get everything that you need. And I was talking to someone not too long ago, just the other day, in regards to how, no, you don't understand. We were the ones that were doing the trade. We were the ones that were actually doing, the import export. And that's all over the world. You have kings that was coming from Africa that would go to Portugal, that would go all over doing trading. So it's not that we were bound just by one place. And
Right,
a lot of people like to think that that was the case. No, we were actually free to roam among all the world. And
right,
everybody did not get to the States by any type of enslavement. Some just happened to travel. It
right,
just happened that way. So it's just amazing. But you learn those things, and the only way that you can learn those things is African American lit, or being connected with someone like April Jackson. Okay, you gotta know her. So again, I want people to reach out to her on her IG. It's pastnetwork.org. Trust me, you now, instead of flipping on TikTok, looking at something worthless, tap into someone like this that will feed your knowledge, will feed your spirit, and will encourage you and your children to do and go to a higher learning. So until next time, guys, I appreciate you. May God bless you, bless your homes, bless your children in the mighty name of Jesus. We love you.